Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
We head back to September 19th, 1945 for an episode of The Adventures of Ozzie-and-Harriet, starring Ozzie-and-Harriet-Nelson, or at the time I believe she was still billed as Harriet Hilliard, which was her maiden name. And this episode, it seems like everybody's getting into a squabble, including Ozzie and Harriet.
International Sterling. International Sterling is solid silver. The solid silver with beauty that lives forever is International Sterling. From Hollywood, the creators of International Sterling presents The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, starring young America's favorite couple, Ozzie Nelson and Harriet Hilliard. It's late afternoon as we join the Nelsons at 1847 Rogers Road. Harriet is sitting in the living room, and little David is just entering the house.
Is that you, David?
Yes, Mother.
All through playing?
Yes, Mother. I was just going upstairs to get ready for dinner. I want to brush my shoes and change my clothes and clean my teeth and wash my face.
David, come in here. I want to talk to you.
I'll be right there in about 5 minutes.
You come in here right now, young man. I've been a mother long enough to know when something's wrong.
All right, Mother. Here I am.
Oh, David Nelson, look at you. Your pants are torn, your sweater's ripped, your face is scratched, and your lip is cut.
Mother, there's something I want to tell you.
I've been fighting. Yeah. Well, that's rather obvious, to say the least. How'd it happen?
Well, you know that boy Hubert Jones down the block? Well, me and him...
Not me and him.
I mean, him and me, him and I, we had a few words.
What do you mean you had a few words?
Well, we didn't do much talking.
David, you know very well that fighting in the streets is terrible, and I won't have it.
Well, gee whiz, Mom, it wasn't all my fault. He said something to me I didn't like, and I said something back to him. And I kind of pushed out my fist, and he banged his nose against it.
I think I've heard just about enough. You'll have to be punished, David. I don't like to say that, but I'm afraid it's necessary.
Oh, Mom.
Now, don't look up at me with that sad face and try to break my heart, because it's not going to do any good. I think this is something for your father to handle. Oh, Ozzie! Ozzie!
We're coming, dear. What is it, Harriet?
Just look at David. He's been out fighting in the street with that Jones boy. It's disgraceful, that's what it is. You're his father, and I think you ought to say something to him.
David?
Yes, Dad?
Who won?
Ozzie Nelson, you're just as bad as he is.
Well, if David was fighting, he might have had a good reason.
I don't care what his reason was. Look at his lip. Look at his cheek. Look at his ear. I want him to grow up to look like my side of the family.
Now, look, I'm not taking David's part, mind you, but I do think that every young boy should learn how to defend himself. And I speak from personal experience.
Gosh, I'll bet you were a great fighter when you were a kid, Dad.
Well, as a matter of fact, I guess I was, David.
Did you get many Indians?
Well, David...
David, stop buttering up your father. A fine lecture you're giving the boy.
David, your mother's right. What your mother means is that we just don't like the idea of your getting into fights in the street. We'd rather that it stop.
Oh, don't be too severe with him, dear.
Now, exactly what happened, David?
Well, we had a few words, and I hit him a few times, and he hit me a few times, and then I hit him a few more times.
But you did hit him first. And you know your mother and I don't like to have you fighting. Uppercut?
Yep.
Did you keep your left out and jab as I told you?
Oh, no, Pop, I forgot.
But I told you to keep that left out and jab, jab, jab.
Ozzie?
David, you'll find as you progress along the highway of life It's of the utmost importance that you learn how to get along with your fellow man. You must avoid trouble, avoid arguments, avoid misunderstandings. But if you do get into a fight, keep your left out and jab, jab, jab.
Ozzie!
Now, how did this thing start, David?
Well, we were playing baseball, and I was up at bat, and this fella said I was a bum ball player.
Well, that's no reason to begin using your fists.
But he called me a little stinker.
Well, you just ignore him, David. Names can't hurt you.
Well, then he said you were a big stinker.
Why didn't you hit him with the bat?
David, maybe you'd better run along and get cleaned up for dinner.
Okay, Mom.
And David, no more fighting. Now remember what I say, because the next time I catch you fighting, I won't tell your father. I'll handle it myself.
Yes, Mom. I'll be right down.
He's a fine boy, all right. I'm afraid he's a chip off the old block. Gosh, I remember when I was a kid, I was a terror of the neighborhood.
Oh, Ozzie-Nelson, you were a fat little boy and you know it.
Fat? It so happens I was known as Nelson the Muscle Boy.
Well, from what I heard, they used to call you Nelson the Bustle Boy. Come on, let's go into dinner.
Okay. Gee, I'm glad the meat situation's eased up. Sure is good to eat a steak for a change.
Was yours tender?
Oh, perfect. Very tender. In fact, I cut it with my international sterling silver butter knife.
Well, I'm glad you liked it, dear. I'll call Gloria. Oh, Gloria! Gloria!
Did you call me, Mrs. Nelson?
Yes, Gloria, I did. We finished dinner.
Oh, it was wonderful, too.
Oh, thank you. I'm so... Oh, my goodness. What happened to David's face?
Oh, he got into a fight with a Jones boy down the street.
Oh, look at your eye, David. You're going to have a black eye just like I got once. The time somebody sneaked up behind me and gave me a kick.
Somebody sneaked up behind you and gave you a kick?
Yeah.
And you got a black eye?
I was looking through a keyhole at the time.
Well, I just hope David doesn't make a habit of getting into these fights.
Oh, don't worry, Mom. I'll see you later.
I think fighting is terrible. And I know, too, because my mother and father were always getting into fights.
Oh, that's too bad.
They just never got along. They were divorced twice.
Twice? You mean they remarried?
Oh, no, they just wanted to make sure.
You know, so much trouble could be avoided if everybody'd realize that there are two sides to every question. Things can be viewed from so many different angles.
That's why I never wear slacks.
Well, that's something else again. What I meant was that coming to blows is so foolish. The old saying is still true. Might doesn't make right.
Mrs. Nelson, you've never been out with a sailor, have you?
Well, not lately, Gloria, anyway.
I'll get it. Yes?
That's the kid's father, Unc. Hit him.
What?
Go ahead, Unc. Hit him. You know what Annie told you.
Now, just a minute, Hubert. The man hasn't even said anything yet.
What's this all about?
There, he said something. Hit him.
What's going on here?
Well, it seems that your son had a fight with my nephew and bloodied his nose.
Oh, yes. Well, I already gave David a lecture about that.
Yatted. Talk. Hit him, Uncle Peter, and let's go home.
Now, just a minute, son. You're bigger than David. Why can't you settle your own arguments?
Because the psychiatrist says I'm a delicate, sensitive boy who abhors violence. Go ahead, bust him on, Unc.
Your uncle's not going to hit anybody.
That's what you think.
Hubert, you better wait out in the car. Some of the things I'm going to say to Mr. Nelson may not be fit for you to hear.
But, Uncle Peter, I want to hear.
I'm sure your Aunt Bertha would not approve. Now go. Go.
Well, okay. But be sure you give him you know what.
Okay, he's gone. Now, just what is this you're going to say to me?
Shake hands. You've got a fine boy. I'm Hubert's uncle, but Hubert is one of the most spoiled, mean brats that I have ever seen.
Well, my gosh, how can an uncle speak that way about his nephew?
Well, I'm not really his uncle. I'm only his uncle through an error.
Through an error?
Yes, I married his aunt. She's the one who forced me to come over here and bawl you out.
Oh, really?
You see, little Hubert comes by it naturally. He's always picking fights with other boys. Then my wife sends me out to argue with their parents. This is the 4th mission I've been on this week.
Well, why do you go?
Oh, Mr. Nelson, you don't know my wife.
Well, you sound as if you're afraid of her.
Afraid of her? If I didn't come over here to bawl you out, she would take me and bend me over backwards.
Now, please, she can't really bend you over backwards.
Mr. Nelson, I have spent some of the best years of my life staring at the seat of my pants.
Oh, you're just like a lot of other men. You're afraid to assert yourself with your wife. Now, look, the next time she pulls that stuff, tell her off.
Really?
Absolutely. It's all a matter of psychology. Now, what's every woman's biggest fear? Having her husband run out on her. And that's the best way to threaten her. Make out you're running out on her, and she'll be a different woman.
Is that so?
Well, sure, there's nothing to it. At the end of one of your arguments, all you have to do is walk over to the door and leave.
Are you kidding? At the end of one of our arguments, who can walk?
Will you please listen to me? I'm telling you, it never misses. Now, the next time you have a little argument, don't take anything from her at all. Just get mad and say, I'm going out and I don't know when I'm coming back. And out you go. And don't just close the door, slam it.
Slam the door.
In 3 or 4 hours, you come back home. But don't come crawling back with a bunch of apologies and a box of candy. Just bust right in, tell her you came back for some shirts and ties and your toothbrush. When she hears that, she'll start crying. Then you can take your time accepting her apology and forgiving her.
Oh, gosh. Thanks for the advice.
Oh, that's okay. Hey, look out. Here comes the little stool pigeon. You better start working me over.
Well, how you doing, Uncle Peter? If you don't tell him plenty, I'll tell Aunt Bertha, and you know what she'll do to you.
Don't interrupt me, Hubert. It's a fine state of affairs, Mr. Nelson, when an innocent little child like Hubert can not go outside without being set upon by a hoodlum.
Oh, it's terrible. I'm so ashamed.
Well, you should be. It is a disgraceful way to bring up a child. And I suggest that you see that he mends his ways, or I will be forced to take this up with the authorities who handle juvenile delinquents.
Oh, please, give me just one more chance, sir.
Oh, why don't you hit him, Uncle Peter?
I wouldn't soil my hands on him.
Ozzie, what's keeping you
And another thing, Nelson, you're lucky you apologized for making all this trouble, or I'd really smash you a good one.
Ozzie, are you going to stand there and let him say things like that?
Well, I'll explain later.
And don't let it happen again. Goodbye. And you're peachy, Mr. Nelson.
Why, Ozzie Nelson, I'm surprised at you.
Now, stop jumping to conclusions.
The idea is just standing there and taking all that abuse.
Will you let me explain, please? I was just saving the poor guy's life, that's all. His wife made him come over here and do that.
You mean you let him say those things to keep his wife happy?
Well, what's wrong with doing a guy a favor?
Well, leave it to men to figure out a thing like that, of all the idiotic things.
Well, I don't see anything idiotic about it. I just helped them out, that's all. Besides, if men are idiotic, what are women?
Oh, go on. Go on. It's just about time to bring up women drivers to prove your point, isn't it?
No, it isn't. I happen to think that women drivers drive very well, considering they keep their eyes closed in traffic.
Well, it happens to be a well-known fact that men are sillier than women.
It does?
Yes. Ask any woman.
Harriet, maybe you're right at that. Maybe men are sillier than women.
Oh, so you finally admit it?
Yes, sir, they must be sillier than women, because look how silly women are, and men marry them.
Oh, why, Ozzie
Now, look,
Nelson.
dear, I'm not the type to argue. I happen to know there's only one way for a husband to handle a situation like this, and that's this way. Goodbye.
Oh, Ozzie! Ozzie, come back!
Yes?
You forgot your hat.
September 19th, 1945, Ozzie and Harriet on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You know, it's true. Difficult times have a way of focusing us. We have to think about what matters most when it comes to our spending, our health care. No doubt. This is why so many people are joining Medishare right now. Medishare is a trusted way to save up to 50% on your monthly healthcare costs. More than 400,000 people have already made the switch. It's pretty obvious why, too, especially now during this challenging season with healthcare costs and out-of-pocket expenses going up. Medishare can save you a lot of money. The typical family saves $500 a month. And Medishare is a Christian healthcare sharing ministry that's worked beautifully for 29 years. There are different options to choose from to fit your budget. I'll give you the number here in a second, and if you call, you can get a price within 2 minutes. Maybe now is the perfect time to make the switch and start saving. Here you go. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, more of Ozzie and Harriet, September 19th, 1945.
Now, let's get back to Ozzie and Harriet, shall we? There's been a little quarrel at the Nelson household this evening. Oh, I can't believe it's anything serious, but yet, well, gosh, Ozzie did walk out and slam the door, and, well, we'll see. As our scene opens, Ozzie is mumbling his way down the street.
Sometimes you just gotta put your foot down.
Hello, Mr. Nelson.
Oh, hello, Emmy Lou.
I'm sorry I can't stop to speak to you today, Mr. Nelson. I've simply got to meet my girlfriend downtown. I've got to fly.
Well, run right along, Emmy Lou. I got nothing on my mind right now except a lot of domestic trouble anyway.
Goodbye, Mr. Nelson. Did you say domestic trouble?
Oh, well, it's nothing serious, Emmy. Nothing to get excited about. All that happened was Mrs. Nelson and I had a little difference of opinion.
Oh, is that all?
Yes, although that really does create sort of a problem.
You call that a problem, Mr. Nelson? Just put yourself in my shoes. How would you like to meet a boy that you fell in love with at first sight, and he fell in love with you, too? And he kept saying he loved you, but he couldn't get married because he was supporting his little sister. And then you found out he didn't even have a little sister, that it was all lies, lies, lies.
Is that what happened to you?
Well, no, but I've got a blind date for tomorrow, and you never can tell.
Well, I'm afraid you didn't quite understand my problem. You see, I walked out of the house in the middle of an argument before, and I'm depending on psychology to force Mrs. Nelson to make the first move.
You mean you're going back in the house and make up?
Oh, no, that's where the psychology comes in. Now, the average husband would come crawling back with a box of candy and a lot of apologies. Not me. I use the hard-to-get method, the old psychology. Never fails. Well, see you later, Emmy Lou.
Bye, Mr. Nelson. I hope you won't be too lonesome tonight.
Are you kidding? I'm on my way now to call a few of my friends and have a poker game or something. There's plenty to do. Probably be a big night for me. Oh, Charlie? Yeah, this is Ozzie. That's right. Yeah, I haven't talked to you in months. What's new? Really? Today? Oh, well, congratulations. What is it, a boy? Ah, that's swell. And I don't suppose you'd be interested in the game tonight. Well, anyway, it's been nice speaking to you, Charlie. Haven't talked to you in months. So long. Oh, by the way, this new edition's number 4, isn't it? What? Number 9? Say, I haven't talked to you in years. Well, that takes care of Charlie. Let's see, Don couldn't make it, or Harold, or Ben. I think I'll give Al a ring. Hello, Al? Yeah, this is Ozzie. Yeah. How about a little poker tonight, or a night baseball game or something? Promise your wife what? Well, just tell her you'll take her to the movies some other time. No, of course I'm not drunk. Nothing wrong with a guy going out without his wife once in a while, is there? Men ought to assert themselves a little more. Then their wives would appreciate them. Well, no, I'm not making this call from my house. Okay. What? Oh, don't worry about me. There are plenty of bright spots open. So long, Al. Golly, all these henpecked guys. I know what I'll do. I'll call George or Cal. They're always on the loose. golly, all these henpecked guys. Hey, this solitaire's not a bad game at that. Let's see how much I lost to myself. Gee, I'd really be in a hole if I hadn't cheated a little.
I'm sorry, sir. The library closes at 9:30.
Oh, thank you. Well, I guess I've let Harriet suffer enough. I might as well go home and accept her apologies.
Is that you, Ozzie?
Yes, Harriet.
Did you come back for something?
I think I'll stay downtown tonight.
Fine, that'll be a break for me. You've been snoring lately.
Why, I just came back to get my other suit and some shirts and ties. I'll go upstairs and get them now.
Oh, don't bother. I packed a suitcase for you with your things in it. It's right there by the doorway.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
What's the matter? Don't you like the suitcase?
Oh, yes, it's fine.
September 19th, 1945, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. The conclusion after these messages on Classic Radio Theater.
Has someone in your family lost a job recently, and now you can't afford your mortgage payment? Or do you have a rental property and your tenants aren't paying you? We can come to the rescue and pay you cash for your home immediately. Yes, sell your home and get cash all over the phone without dealing with real estate agents or having to waste time showing your home to lukewarm buyers. You don't need to lose your house to foreclosure. If you have equity in your home, we'll buy your home and give you cash within days, all in a simple over-the-phone and virtual process. Call now before your situation gets worse. Sell a home you can't afford or just need anymore and get the cash you need today. Call this number now.
800-477-4612. 800-477-4612. 800-477-4612. That's 800-477-4612. Paid for by Want to Sell.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, September 19th, 1945.
Well, that's fine. I suppose you've been having a big time.
Oh, I just hit a few of the high spots. Dropped into the Macombo, and then over the Trocadero, and from there to Ciro's.
Did you dance?
Well, just a couple of turns around the floor at each place.
With anyone I know?
No, just a couple of cute little girls I happened to meet. They weren't particularly brilliant conversationalists, but they certainly were
Good dancers?
Well, it was so crowded, we just stood in the middle of the floor and vibrated a little.
Oh. Well, that sounds like fun.
Yes, it was, I guess. Well, I'd better be going. I say I'd better be going. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
If you ever need me for anything, the faucet may start to leak again. You can reach me by putting an ad in the personals. Signed Lonely. I'll come from wherever I am.
I put your toothbrush and the razor in the suitcase, too.
Oh, you needn't have bothered with my razor. I don't think I'll be shaving. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye. What's that you're hiding in back of you?
Why? What do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's silly of me. I just thought for a minute it was a box of candy.
How can a woman be married to a man for 10 years almost and know so little about his character? Don't you realize if I brought home a box of candy to you, it would be an admission of defeat? It would be like saying, I'm sorry, forgive me.
Well, what is that behind your back?
A box of candy. I'm sorry, darling. Forgive me.
Oh, no, it was all my fault. I was so stubborn.
Oh, but you were right all the time.
No, I was wrong. You were right.
Then why didn't you apologize? Packing that suitcase. You would have let me leave, wouldn't you?
But, Ozzie...
I never want to see that suitcase again. I'm going to throw it out right now.
Here, I'll give you a hammer.
A hammer?
Yes, the suitcase is nailed to the floor.
I knew I should have held out just a little longer.
And now let's look in on Ozzie and Harriet again.
Ozzie?
Yes, Harriet?
I forgot to tell you. Before you got back, the librarian called and said she found your King of Diamonds under the nonfiction table.
Oh, well, then you knew I wasn't at the Macumba or Ciro's dancing with those girls?
Yes, dear.
Well, then why did you look so mad?
Because you looked so happy while you were telling me about it.
Oh, fine. Harriet and I have been asked to remind you that even though the war is over, the government still needs tin to send food to our soldiers in Europe and the Pacific. It needs tin to pack medical supplies for our wounded soldiers. It needs tin to put civilian goods back on the market. The need is great and the supply limited.
And it'll take some time before we can get normal shipments from such places as the Dutch East Indies and Malaya. So for the time being, our most valuable tin mine is the American kitchen.
And let's make sure that the tin cans are prepared properly for salvage. The labels removed, the tin washed thoroughly, and prepared in accordance with local requirements. Thanks a lot, folks, and good night.
Night, folks.
International Silver Company, creators of International Sterling, invite you to listen again next Sunday to The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, with songs by the King Sisters and music by Ozzie Nelson's orchestra. And don't forget, the solid silver with beauty that lives forever is International Sterling. This program originates in the Hollywood studios of the Columbia Broadcasting System and is also broadcast over the Trans-Canada Network of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. This adventure of Ozzie and Harriet will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Appearing in support of Ozzie and Harriet were B. Benaderet, John Brown, Joel Davis, Louise Erickson, and Tommy Cook. Original music was composed by Billy May. Vern Smith speaking. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
September 19th, 1945, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
Attention Walmart shoppers. Now you can order one of the most advanced hearing aids on the market for hundreds, not thousands of dollars. Hearing Assist's most advanced product lineup includes models that use an exclusive app for enhanced control over what you want to hear. It's perfect if you have a smartphone or iPhone to hear everything better. And we have two great ways for you to get one. You can call the number at the end of this ad and order directly. Or you can call this same number and we will text you a complete list of Walmart Vision Center locations. We make it easy for you to hear better. Remember, call this number today to order and have a text message instantly sent to your phone to find the Walmart Vision Center near you. Here's that special number.
Call 800-360-0597. 800-360-0597. 800-360-0597. That's 800-360-0597.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, Part 3 of the 5-part Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story, The Imperfect Alibi Matter. This episode originally broadcast September 19th, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
Joe Restelli at Homicide, Johnny. I was out when you called.
Anything new on the Harvey Stone killing, Joe?
Not a thing, but maybe we've already got all we need.
Meaning Helen Barrett?
We're still holding her.
Joe, I don't think she did it.
No?
Oh, I know it all adds up to her, but... Well, just call it a hunch.
Hunches are fine, Johnny, but facts are better. You want to hear some facts?
I'll be right over.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Home Office, Northeast Indemnity Associates, Hartford, Connecticut. Assignment, the Imperfect Alibi Matter, location New York City. Expense account continued. Item 8, $1.40, cab fare to police headquarters from my hotel to talk to Lieutenant Joe Rastelli.
Sit down, Johnny.
Thanks. Facts, you said.
Facts. Number 1. Harvey Stone was shot in the left side of the forehead at close range with a .38 caliber Smith and Wesson. The gun was near the body.
Any prints on it?
No, it was clean. But Helen Barrett had gloves with her.
Helen says she left Harvey's apartment and went to her own to pack up. They were going to elope. When she got back to his apartment, he was dead.
So she told me, Johnny. I'd like to believe her, too. She seems like a pretty nice kid, but...
But what?
Not enough facts in her favor. Who saw her leave Stone's apartment? We can't find anyone who did. What time did she leave? She can't remember. Did anyone see her return? What time? That's a lot of questions not to be able to answer, Johnny.
Yeah, I know. What was the time of death?
Medical examiner figures it's somewhere between 11:30 and midnight.
Well, Helen told me she thought it was about 11 when she left Harvey's apartment and about midnight when she returned.
Yeah, about. Even if she did leave, she only lives a few blocks away. There's a lot of time unaccounted for, Johnny.
Yeah.
Better fill me in on what you know.
Well, as I get it, Harvey Stone took over the management of his father's corporation when old E.J. took to a wheelchair about a year ago.
Yeah, I know.
2 years ago, old E.J. married an ex-chorus girl named Daphne.
Yeah.
Well, she's about Harvey's age. The two of them were apparently pretty friendly, and the old man was bothered by it occasionally. Incidentally, he and Daphne are joint beneficiaries on Harvey's insurance policy. $150,000 worth.
Sounds like you're trying to tie the old man into the killing. Be quite a stretch, Johnny, from his wheelchair up in Westchester County to Harvey's apartment on East 57.
I know, but right now I'm more interested in Daphne.
Oh?
I told you last night I thought Dutch Krieger was mixed up in this. I went to his office afterward and spotted a picture of Daphne Stone on his wall. Inscription, All My Love. Signed, Daphne.
You think Daphne got Dutch to do her and himself a favor, huh?
That's a possibility, isn't it?
Sure, it's a possibility. Trouble is, there are all kinds of possibilities. Right now, I got to stick with a probability. Helen Barrett.
Uh-huh. How are you doing on motive for her?
Not good, not bad. We know there was some question as to whether they were going to be married or not. Helen says the hesitation was on her part. But suppose it was the other way around.
Harvey decided not to go through with the marriage?
Yeah. Getting cut out of the Stone money would hurt some girls plenty. Maybe this was her way of getting even with him for breach of promise.
You know, Joe, for a guy who loves facts, seems to me you're edging over into hunches, too.
Well, I admit it isn't a closed case by a long shot. So let's get back to facts. Harvey was shot in the forehead with a .38 Smith and Wesson sometime between 11:30 and... Excuse me. Rastelli speaking. Who? What about? Oh, well, send him in. Somebody wants to see me about the killing.
Oh?
You Lieutenant Rastelli?
That's right.
You're handling the Stone killing?
Trying to.
I want to talk to you about it.
Sit down.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Gentry. Alvin Gentry.
So what about the Stone killing?
I killed Harvey Stone.
What? Let's have that again.
I said, I killed Stone. I want to make a statement.
Why did you kill him?
Making a play for my girl. I didn't like it.
Your girl? You mean Helen Barrett?
Who?
Helen Barrett, Harvey Stone's fiancée.
No, I don't know her. I mean my girl, Doris, a hat check girl at Barney's.
Well, go on.
Well, Stone was on the make for her. Every time he came in Barney's, he'd make a play for her. I told him to lay off, and he wouldn't. He asked her to go away with him. I went to his apartment, I killed him.
How'd you kill him?
I shot him.
Where?
I told you, in his apartment.
I mean, where did the bullet hit him?
Oh, in the chest.
What kind of gun did you use?
45 Colt.
What'd you do with the gun?
I threw it in the river.
Okay, Gentry, get out.
What?
I said get out.
But I told you...
Yeah, you told me all right. Now I'm telling you, get out.
Look, I don't understand.
I'll tell you what you do. You just go on out of here and think it over. When you come back with a few facts straight...
Facts?
Yeah, like the caliber of the gun and where Stone was shot and the location of the gun. You get the facts straight, and I'll be glad to listen to you. Now get out.
Okay.
Confessing Sam #1.
Yeah, there's always a string of them. That's one reason we don't usually release the caliber of the gun to the papers, to help weed out these confessing Sams.
Wonder why they do it.
A psychiatrist was explaining it to me once. Something to do with repressed feelings of guilt, I think he said. Next one will probably say he stabbed Harvey Stone with a letter opener.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to run out and have a talk with Daphne.
Stully speaking? What? Now, look, Mike, you take the statement, huh? Thanks. Well, I was wrong about the letter opener, Johnny.
Oh?
We got a guy now who claims he used a razor on Harvey. Slit his throat from ear to ear.
As I left, I spent about 3 minutes feeling sorry for Estelli and his crank confessions, but then I dropped that routine and started feeling sorry for my own problems. The case against Helen Barrett looked pretty bad, but I still kept thinking of Daphne Stone's picture in Dutch Krieger's office. Expense account item 9320, transportation to the Stone estate in Westchester County. I was shown into the king-size drawing room again to wait for Daphne. But then I saw a very interesting sight that wiped Daphne out of my mind for a moment. It was old E.J.'s wheelchair at the door to the solarium. And what was unusual about it was that it was empty. I edged toward the door, then I got a glimpse of E.J. puttering around his orchids. He spotted me, though, and hobbled quickly to his wheelchair. With an abrupt wave, he wheeled into the hall and out of sight. A couple of minutes later, in came Daphne.
Hello, Johnny.
Daphne?
Well, you said it was important that you talk to me, but I really don't feel much like talking after what's happened. I'm sure you understand.
I think so. How's E.J. taking it?
My husband is reacting as I suppose any father would who'd just lost his son. He's bewildered and hurt.
You didn't tell me E.J. could navigate without his wheelchair. I saw him a minute ago inspecting his orchids. The wheelchair was parked near the door.
I didn't think it was important, Johnny. It's true he can be out of his chair for short periods, but it's rather uncomfortable for him.
Out of his chair for how long?
Not long enough to get into New York and back, if that's what you're wondering.
Thanks. You told me it was E.J. who was opposed to Harvey's plans to marry Helen Barrett, but I found out that you were the one who was fighting it.
I suppose it was foolish of me to pretend otherwise. I guess I just didn't want you to get any wrong ideas.
About what?
About the reason I opposed it.
What's the right idea?
The name of Stone means something, Johnny. Dignity, tradition, breeding. I doubt if someone like Helen Barrett, an entertainer, nice as she is, could keep that tradition alive.
Are you kidding?
I'm completely serious. Something like this happened once before with Harvey's secretary, Martha Winters.
And you stopped it just like you were trying to stop him from marrying Helen.
I don't like the way you put that. I merely persuaded him to think of the family name.
You know, you kill me, Daphne.
What do you mean by that?
This dose of blue blood you've picked up, aren't you a Daphne-come-lately yourself?
How dare you?
Save it. E.J. told me he lifted you out of a chorus line when he married you. Now, how about it?
Yes, it's true.
So where do you get off with this?
I don't suppose you'd ever understand this, Johnny. But there are chorus girls and chorus girls.
This I know.
I had to support my mother somehow. But all the while, I knew that life wasn't for me. And when I got a chance at this life, I took it. And since I married Edward, I've lived the way anyone with the name of Stone should live. I've put my past behind me.
Even Dutch Krieger?
Dutch?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw your picture on his office wall.
He was part of the past. It doesn't exist anymore.
Isn't it kind of a coincidence he tried to worm his way into one of Harvey's business deals?
I had nothing to do with it. And Harvey acted correctly in refusing to have anything to do with Dutch.
I see. Then you opposed Harvey's marriage to Helen to protect the family name, huh?
Just as I opposed the previous attachment to his secretary.
Sure it wasn't because you didn't like the idea of competition?
That's It's a pretty low thing to say under the circumstances.
Well, just what are the circumstances?
It's very simple. I've lost someone who was very dear to me. Even though I was Harvey's stepmother, we were practically the same age. Sure. I know people talked about it, made crude jokes about it. But I didn't care. Because I found in Harvey something I'd never had in my life before.
Oh? What was that?
A friend, Johnny. A real friend.
I went back into the city. If I could only find somebody to establish the time period Helen had been away from Harvey's place. I went over to her apartment house, figuring there's always one tenant who knows everybody else's business. 5 doorbells later, I found the one.
Sure, I had to come in late, but I don't remember just what time. I was watching a program on the TV. There was this old man and woman.
Yes.
Really, what?
You're sure it was Helen Barrett who came in?
Well, I ought to be sure. She lives right under me. Besides, he was waiting for him. They had a talk. I couldn't quite hear what they were saying. She kept telling him to quiet down. Well, I mean, I wasn't really paying any attention. It was...
No, of course not. You said he was waiting for her. Who do you mean?
Friend of hers, at least he used to be. She used to go with him.
Happen to remember his name?
Sure. Gentry. Alvin Gentry.
Alvin Gentry. It was Alvin Gentry who'd made the fake confession in Rastelli's office. At the time, there'd been nothing to tie him into the case. But now, according to Mrs. Carson, he was a friend of Helen's. My hunch about her innocence took a nosedive. Yeah, that confession he tried to make could be his way of trying to protect her. And that would add up to just one thing. Helen was guilty after all.
Now, here's our star to tell you about tomorrow's episode of this week's story.
Tomorrow, up pops an eyewitness and drives the final nail into the wrong coffin. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
September 19th, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Want to thank Ted at RadioMemories.com for making this week's Adventures of Johnny Dollar available. That's RadioMemories.com. He supplies programs on cassette, CD, or flash drive for your computer at a very reasonable price. RadioMemories.com. Also keep my website handy. That is classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows on demand. You can learn more about classic radio collecting. You can find podcast sites where you can download our shows if you want to do them that way. You can also find our social media links, and you can also buy me a copy. The Buy Me a Copy link is what helps us purchase additional great classic radio collections from collectors, like we've gathered a number lately. So, web page again, hello, classicradio.stream. Please thank this station. Support their advertisers. They deserve your support. And as always, tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.